You're sitting at your desk and someone asks what you want to achieve this year, and you start listing things one by one. Career goals, financial targets, skills you want to learn, places you want to go. And as you're saying them, you notice this feeling rising. It's not excitement exactly. It's more like pressure. Like you just added weight to something already heavy. And the person nods approvingly. Those are good goals, that's for sure. Those are ambitious too. You're going places, but you drive home and the weight is still there. Heavier now. And you start to wonder when ambition stopped feeling like possibility and started feeling like burden. I think we've been sold a story about ambition that doesn't quite match reality. The story goes like this. You set goals, you work toward them, you achieve them, and with each achievement you feel lighter, freer, more yourself. Like you're climbing towards some version of life that finally feels right. But that's not how it works. Not really. Not for most people. What actually happens is you set a goal, you work toward it, and the whole time you're carrying it, thinking about it, measuring yourself against it. And when you achieve it, there's a brief moment of relief, and then the weight comes back, because now there's the next goal, the next thing you should be working toward, the next version of yourself you're supposed to become. And the weight never actually lifts. It just shifts, changes shape, finds new things to attach to. There was a philosopher who thought a lot about this, Schopenhauer, and he had this idea that sounds depressing at first, but might actually be clarifying. He said that striving is suffering, not dramatic suffering, just this constant low-level discomfort, this sense of incompleteness, of always being oriented towards something you don't have yet. And ambition is just concentrated striving. It's taking that natural human tendency to want things and focusing it, intensifying it, organizing your entire life around it. And the more ambitious you are, the more you're essentially committing to a life of perpetual incompleteness, of always measuring yourself against a future that hasn't arrived yet. Which sounds bleak, I know. But stick with me because there's something clarifying about seeing it this way. You know that feeling on Sunday night? That heaviness that settles in? People call it the Sunday scaries. But it's not really about Monday. It's about ambition. About all the things you're trying to achieve, all the ways you're trying to improve, all the versions of yourself you're working toward. And Sunday night is when you feel the weight of all of that coming back. The brief escape of the weekend is over, and now you have to carry it again. And here's the strange part. The more ambitious you are, the heavier it gets. Because you're not just carrying the present, you're carrying the future too. The imagined version of yourself who's achieved these things, who's become these things. And the gap between who you are now and who you're supposed to become is where the weight lives. Schopenhauer would say that's the trap. That you think achieving your ambitions will close that gap, will make you finally feel complete. But achievement doesn't close the gap. It just creates a new one, a new version of who you should be, a new set of goals to carry. And the weight continues. I think about this when I hear people talk about their 5-year plans, their vision boards, their ambitious goals, and they say it with this tone of excitement, like they're building something, moving towards something. And maybe they are, but what they're also doing is signing up for 5 more years of carrying weight, of measuring themselves against a future that keeps receding. There's this joke I heard once about a man who goes to his doctor and says, "I want to live to be 100. What should I do?" And the doctor says, "Well, do you drink?" The man says, "No." "Do you smoke?" "No." "Do you eat rich foods?" "No." "Do you stay up late?" "No." And the doctor looks at him and says, "Then why do you want to live to be 100? It's funny because it's true. We organize our entire lives around future goals, and in the process we make the present heavier, more constrained, more filled with shoulds and shouldn'ts, and we tell ourselves it's worth it because of what we're building toward. But we get there, and the present is still heavy, still constrained, just in new ways. And I think that's what Schopenhauer was pointing at, that ambition promises future lightness, but delivers present heaviness, and the future never actually arrives. You just keep living in the heavy present, the striving present, the not quite there yet present. You see this in how people talk about their goals. They say things like, once I get this promotion, I'll be able to relax. Once I save this amount, I'll feel secure. Once I achieve this thing, I'll finally feel like I made it. And they're not lying. They genuinely believe it. But they get there and they don't relax. They don't feel secure. They don't feel like they made it. They just find new things to strive for, new ways to be incomplete. And it's not that they're broken. It's not that they're doing it wrong. It's just how ambition works. It's a treadmill that keeps moving. And the more you run, the faster it goes. And you think if you can just run fast enough, you'll get to the end. But there is no end. There's just more treadmill. Schopenhauer believed that peace, if it exists at all, comes from wanting less, not achieving more. From reducing the gap between what you have and what you want. Not by getting more of what you want, but by wanting less of what you don't have, which sounds like giving up, like settling, like accepting less than you could be. And maybe it is, but maybe it's also the only way to make life lighter, to stop carrying the weight of all these future selves you're supposed to become. I don't know if that's true. Some days I think ambition is necessary, that without it, life would feel aimless, meaningless, that the striving is what gives it shape. Other days I think ambition is just a trap we've all agreed to pretend is a virtue, a way of making ourselves perpetually dissatisfied while calling it growth. But either way, I notice the weight. I notice how every new goal I set makes life heavier, how every new version of myself I imagine creates a new gap to carry. And I wonder if there's a way to live that's not organized around constant becoming, around perpetual incompleteness. There's this moment that happens sometimes. You're doing something ordinary, walking, eating, just existing. And for a brief window, you're not thinking about what you should be doing, not measuring yourself against where you should be, not carrying any goals or ambitions or future selves. And life feels light, surprisingly light, like you forgot you were allowed to just be. And those moments are rare, and they don't last, but they're there. And when they happen, you realize that the heaviness isn't built into life. It's built into striving, into ambition, into the constant orientation toward what's next. And Schopenhauer would say that's all you can hope for. Those brief windows where the striving stops and you get to experience life without the weight of becoming, without the burden of ambition, just existing, just here. But you can't live there. Not really. Because we live in a world that requires ambition, that rewards it, that organizes everything around it. And if you opt out completely, you get left behind. You lose ground, you become irrelevant. So you carry the weight, you set the goals, you strive, not because it makes life lighter, but because that's what you're supposed to do. That's how you participate. That's how you prove you're trying. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the weight is just the price of admission. The cost of being alive in a world organized around constant becoming. And complaining about it is like complaining about gravity. It's just how it works. It's just the structure. But I think it helps to see it, to recognize that the heaviness you feel isn't a sign that you're not achieving enough. It's a sign that you're ambitious, that you're carrying a lot of future, a lot of imagined selves, a lot of goals and visions and plans, and that weight is the cost, not the reward, because the reward never comes. Not really. You achieve something and there's that brief lightness, and then the weight comes back, new goals, new versions, new gaps to carry, and you're right back where you started, striving, becoming, never quite arriving. And Schopenhauer would say that's just how it is. That's the deal. That's what ambition costs. And you can either accept it, or you can keep pretending that the next achievement will finally make life feel light. But it won't. It never has, and it's not supposed to. You're sitting at your desk and someone asks what you want to achieve, and you start listing things. And as you're saying them, you feel the weight. And you keep talking anyway, because that's what you do. That's what everyone does. And maybe seeing that clearly doesn't change anything. Maybe you still set the goals, still carry the weight, still strive, but at least you stop expecting it to feel different. Stop weighty achievement that finally makes life light. Stop blaming yourself for feeling heavy, even when you're succeeding. Because the heaviness isn't failure, it's ambition. And ambition is weight. And maybe that's just the truth. Uncomfortable, unresolved, but true. And somewhere in that recognition, there's something that feels almost like acceptance. Not peace, not lightness, just clarity. Just seeing the game for what it is and playing it anyway because you have to. Because that's the deal. Because there's no other option. You keep striving, you keep carrying, you keep becoming. Not because it makes life lighter, but because that's what life is. At least the ambitious version of it. The version we've all signed up for whether we meant to or not. And maybe that's enough. Or maybe it isn't. But either way, you keep going. We all do. Carrying our futures, our goals, our visions of who we're supposed to become. And the weight never lifts. And we keep pretending it will. And that's just how it goes.